My fight all my life long is not to enter into the system. It's not to accept the others, you know.
Well. Can you hear me? Welcome. Good evening. It's me, Comic Crack. What's going on? There's a new thing on StreamYard where you can do like intros or outros. I did a quick edit of an old piece there to add as an intro, only to find out that you gotta upgrade your account to be able to play the intros. So I said, fuck it. We're showing it anyway. So figured out how to actually present it there. So I hope you enjoyed that little intro. You'll probably never see that kind of thing again. Welcome. It's Sunday night. I hope you can hear me okay. Let me just double check my audio. That's all working. Good stuff. Yeah, welcome. It's Sunday. We're back. Got a few things to talk about. A couple of new books to show you. A lot of stuff to talk about off the top. But before we get into any of that, it is Sunday and it is an actual weekend off. So Rasa and I did do a chat over on her channel tonight, or this afternoon rather, for a couple hours where we talked about a bunch of things. So if you want to go over there and have a listen to that, please do so. Make sure that you're subscribed to Rasa's channel as well too. I'm trying also something new. I ran the Ethernet cable down from upstairs to the computer. I was having a chat with my brother who's over in China last week at some point. I don't remember when, but it was a really, like, out of all the chats we've done through Skype, it was the one that was the most difficult. We actually had to have video off for most of it and just do an audio. So I'd been meaning to kind of put some holes in places in the ceiling and the floor to run that Ethernet cable down here. The cable itself is plenty long enough, so it is plugged in tonight. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. You tell me if it's made any difference on your end when you're watching this. Is the image any clearer than it usually is? Turn down the brightness on my monitor a little bit. So with the hopes that that's going to help future chats with my brother. So there you have it. So right off the bat, I wanted to get into some union stuff. The dock workers, what are they? The ILA is what their union is called. What the heck? International Longshoremen of America. Is that what it stands for? Let's see here. All I keep seeing is ILA, but I think that's what it stands for. But talking about that, I wanted to kind of refer to one of the things that they were talking about in their labor action. They went on strike, or they threatened a big strike. I think they were on strike maybe for a day, and everybody panicked, and they came to a tentative agreement on wages. There's still a lot of discussion to be had about other things that they wanted to kind of work out with the employers. But it just got me thinking, because last week, I think it was just this past Tuesday here in Manitoba, our minimum wage went up. So for a long time, for many years, there's been a conversation amongst unions for a fight for a minimum wage of starting at least $15 an hour. Ours was, I think, at around $11, $12. Then that conversation happened and they started boosting it. So on Tuesday, It went up to $15.80 an hour is what our minimum wage is here in Manitoba. It's not the highest in Canada. The highest in Canada, so I'm reading from Global News, posted on October the 1st. Let's see, Saskatchewan. Alberta is the lowest at $15. Saskatchewan and Alberta is the lowest at $15 an hour for minimum wage. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives states that even at $15.80 an hour, that's still low. They would like to see the minimum wage be at least $19.21. And again, that was kind of the conversation years ago when it was kind of gaining a lot of steam, this $15 an hour minimum. It was, by the time it was implemented, because there was conversations of it getting implemented by 2025, that's too late. Then at that point, it has to be about $20 an hour. So I can proudly say, though, that again, one of the perks of being part of a union, our union, many years ago, I put in wording for our collective agreement. I proposed that we our lowest our shows, our movies are by tiers, tier 1 to tier 6. So if you're a tier 1 movie, that's the biggest budget that our collective agreement handles, and it goes all the way down to a tier 6 being our lowest budget. So to be a trainee in a tier 6 movie, the wage is $17.72, and that's because we set it ourselves at 15, probably, I don't know, I think I proposed it like 5 years ago, and it came through, and then every year after that, our wages go up incrementally. It depends. The percentage amount depends every year. It may not be the same for every department. If everybody's getting a 3% raise, the heads of the department who get paid more, that gap is going to grow bigger and bigger. So sometimes we balance it out where maybe the tops in the departments are only getting 2% and the lower positions are getting 4% to sort of balance things out a little bit. So proud to say that within our union, 1772 on our lowest tier movie is what you'd be getting an hour. And then on our highest tier movie in that same IATSE trainee position, you're getting $20.83 minimum wage. So it's a battle that's important, and it all leads to this ILA union, because those are some of the conversations they were having. One of the things they talked about, the ILA has a YouTube channel. So I watched the whole address by their president, whose name I'm blanking on. We'll find out in a second here. And one of the things that they talk about is, yes, of course, wages are important. During the pandemic, they were one of the groups of people that were deemed not to be able to go away from work, mandatory. They were deemed essential is the word I'm looking for. So he said COVID hit them just like it did everybody else. They ended up losing some people. What he was saying that was interesting is there's a job category with those dock workers that's called lashing, if you're the lasher. And he was talking about how it's the most dangerous job within their local, or within their union rather, because your job is to secure the freight down to the ship, and you have to lash it down and tie it off. So when you're at sea, as if everything starts kind of shifting, it's not going to fall over and end up crushing people or doing damage to the boat and sinking a boat. So they make very substantial wages. Of course, everybody loves to focus on the wages. Fox News apparently interviewed them and said, why is it that why do you guys want to why is it that you guys want to halt productivity and our way of life here in America due to wages? And they're always workers are always called greedy when they want more money. And he says plainly that honestly, during the pandemic, the top kind of 2% and owners of companies, businesses and CEOs and executives made an unbelievable amount of money during the pandemic by billions of dollars. And he very rightly says, we want a piece of that. We were forced to work during a pandemic. Our job is dangerous as it is. Now, the wages that they do get, watching my Due Dissidents guys, they were talking because they live in New York as well. The dock workers have East Coast and West Coast. They're two separate unions that run the East Coast versus the West Coast. They were talking about just kind of a basic, a doable living income in that part of the country is phenomenally large compared to somebody like me who's excited about a minimum wage increase to over $15. Again, I agree it isn't enough, but at least we're making headway there. So it's funny the way things are talked about when it comes to workers fighting for things that they feel they rightly deserve. And I would argue that they rightly deserve one of those things being wages, being a piece of the pie. And it's just really telling that when it's someone doing a business deal, when it's somebody that is negotiating hard and they're on that top level, that's seen as something that you should be proud of. But when workers that are at the bottom are fighting for something, they're seen as greedy and why do you deserve it and that sort of thing. And oftentimes that kind of language comes from other people in labor, even if they're not in unions, or especially if they're not in a union organization themselves and the work that they do. And again, it's the focus we always talk about on the channel here is this choice of words and what people decide, what language people decide to use. And something that the Due Dissonance guys talk about is this peasant mentality, been beaten down so much as workers, as labor, that we see other people in labor positions as the enemy instead of the people that we should be seeing as the enemy, the corporations, the CEOs, the executives, people that are higher position and status than us, making way more money than we'll ever see in our entire life. So I wanted to play, I'm going to play from the Due Dissonance channel because they did a little brief edit of his first address. And I thought it was really fantastic. I'm just going to play their video and sort of be on the side. I've never done this sort of thing before, so we'll see if this video gets hit with anything. But so it's going to be strange because it's them on the sidebar watching a video of a guy, and it'll be me on a sidebar watching them watch a video of a guy. But their edit is just really nice as far as they took a good chunk of what he says that I think is something that is worth seeing for all of us. And I totally understand.
But today's world,
I believe, here we go.
It's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
I mean, so there you have it, right? Those kind of statements and those kind of conversations are exactly why I advocate for workers working together and people in labor working together and putting this horse shit aside and putting this political nonsense aside and putting my side versus your side aside. Because when you do get together, what happened was, so they threatened this strike. I believe they went on strike for 1 day. They got contacted immediately and had said, hey, listen, we want to offer you a 62% pay raise over 6 years, where their first offer was 40% pay raise over 6 years. The union's counter offer at that time, I believe, was 77. This is from ABC News is where I'm reading this. So within a day of them being on strike, they came back. They made an offer of 50. And then they made an offer of 62, which is where they agreed to. So it sounds like that part of the deal is hammered down. Now, one of the things that he talks about in the video and some of the longer form stuff is that one of their key issues is automation and robots replacing jobs and automation happening to replace human workers. And he wants that to be something that they had a verbal agreement with their employers many years ago, I think 6 years ago. And the terminology that they used, the employers put in some other automation, but they called it something different as sort of like a bullshit workaround. So now they're at this point, it's like, fuck yourself. I don't care what you call it. You know exactly what we're talking about. We don't want to see any of it. We don't want our jobs taken away. These are people who need these jobs. We can't go into another way of life for to make a living, right? So the importance of getting together on stuff and how quickly things can shift. The idea of a strike isn't to drag anything out. You don't want a strike that lasts months and months. You absolutely don't want that. You want everybody together so you can have a short, quick kind of strike where you send your message very directly, very, very directly. And then hopefully that opens up people's eyes immediately and they come to the table. You sort of force their hand, right? So if we keep being divided, if we keep letting ourselves be divided with some of these things, we lose the ability as blue collar workers or labor or whatever umbrella term that you want to put on it, working class. We lose our ability as the working class to have any sort of power. And honestly, the power is with us, because if we stop going to work, if there is a general strike, if all sorts of places shut down, if your garbage stops getting delivered, if the trucks stop running to deliver goods, if as they're saying, the ports are closed, that brings an entire city, state, province, country to an absolute standstill where nothing is happening. They need to kind of listen at that point. And I think that's the one thing that, again, this love of seeing us infighting and seeing us bickering is something that people in those positions love to see, because then that means we're not focusing on them. If they can continually tell you that your neighbor is the issue, if the guy down the road is the issue, if the person at work who supports Trump or who supports Kamala Harris or whatever hat they happen to be wearing is the enemy, that stops you looking at where your energy should be faced. And I'm really happy to see the Due Dissidence guys making this turn. One of the guys, Keaton, is often talked about as being black-pilled. They have all these fucking terminologies for people, and also kind of like, because he doesn't have the best outlook on some of these things. And I think that the reason he doesn't have a good outlook on politics is because he sees through the game finally. He sees that it is just a game. He sees that it is just a popularity contest. So I'm really happy to see them focus more on labor issues and talking to Kshama Sawant, rather. I apologize. They've talked to Kshama Sawant a couple of times. She is fantastic. If you don't know who she is, Workers Strike Back. She's got a YouTube channel as well too. I I can't remember what it is. I'll find the links and I'll put them in the description. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. More Perfect Union, maybe. So she has a lot of positive things to say. She's got a lot of incredible things to say, actually. She's very passionate. And it's one of those things that I even say to our members in our local when they complain to me about the way things are run. It's like, well, in order to make the changes, though, you need to step up and participate. And I often get like, but this, but that, but stick the butts up your ass, because that's how shit happens, man. You gotta be active. It's not about being revolutionary. It's about being active in your ability and everybody's ability to make a decent living and have a decent job, regardless of what your job is. Have the circumstances that you work under be that much better, raise the bar a little bit. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Follow some union stuff, follow some stuff on YouTube, have a listen to those conversations. If you're not part of a union, look into, is it a possibility to get a union in where you work? Is it something that if you're young enough and you have the ability to, do you have the ability to potentially look for another job that's maybe unionized? But again, don't think that just because you join a union, it's going to solve all your problems. The state of unions across the country, North America, are in a real dire straits. I personally feel like, and I think that that's because people aren't seeing the threat to their job like they did when unions were first starting. There was a real drive to actually participate in these things because their situations and circumstances were so dire. I think that we've had unions and things have been pretty good for so long that people think, well, it just runs itself at this point. I don't need to do anything. Everything is fine now. Things are better, when it's just not the case. And it's also not the case of pulling up every rug to find where issues are to kind of fight about, but it is about fighting as a group and making a stand as a group and making some real actual changes. One of the things, especially with a local like ours, that always surprises me is I feel very out of touch with politics and really at a point where I don't feel that I can affect any sort of change politically. I just don't feel that. Where I do feel like I can affect change, though, is with our local. We write our own collective agreement. We have our own union meetings. We have our own department meetings. We, as the members, have the ability to kind of participate. And if there's enough of us, actually run things within our local, but the drive isn't there from people to want to put in that work. And it's really unfortunate, because being in a situation where you write your own collective agreement isn't the norm. Our negotiations with employers happen on a show-by-show basis. The business agent strikes a deal with the production company. There's a little bit of give and take in there. There's some very, very loose rails as far as what is negotiable and what isn't negotiable. But it all comes down to that business agent listening to the members. So if the members aren't being vocal about some things that they've seen getting negotiated away or changed, then those things are going to kind of keep happening, right? So that's where the participation from members takes place within our local, is that voicing your dislike of some things that have happened on a wider scale, not just one or two people, which is something that happens with our local a lot. There's a couple of people that are very vocal about things, and then they're seen as the troublemakers. And even though there's a large group of people that support those ideas, they don't vocalize it. They don't come down to the meetings to vocalize it. They don't show support in any way. So it appears to be just one or two bad apples, which is again, a classic tactic of making sure that you isolate the workers, separate, divide and conquer, right? So 23 minutes. I think that's it for my rant on that stuff. I appreciate you listening to that. So yesterday was the first Saturday of October, which means that Red River Books had their upstairs open. So me and the kids went to pay a visit. Let's back up for 1 second. Lillian and I are reading Usagi Yojimbo, Lillian being my daughter, of course. We've talked about it before. We had book 1, book 6, and book 7 of the Fantagraphics run. The Fantagraphics run was only 7 books. we were reading book 6 and we're loving it so much. We took some time one night to have a look on eBay to see if some of these other books existed on eBay. We found an unbelievable deal for books 2 and 3 of the Fantagraphics run. The cost was $5 for the 2 books and about $25 for shipping, something like that. So it was around $30 American, which was cheaper than what I had paid for one of the volumes that I got from my comic shop. So we ended up ordering book 2 and 3, or buying book 2 and 3 from this eBay seller. They were listed as like new condition. They're in beautiful condition. The paper itself is a little browned and some staining on it, but honestly, they're in pretty fantastic shape. They showed up really fast. We just finished reading book 3 tonight. We'll talk about these in a moment. But it got us kind of looking in other places to see if we could find those other 2 volumes. We only need book 4 and 5 now from the Fantagraphics run. So that was a big part of the reason to go to Red River. I realized I hadn't really dug deep to see if there was any Usagi Yojimbo on the main floor. I'd done some digging there in the past, but not on the second floor. So because it's open just the one time a month, I figured we'd go down and just kind of scour the shelves. It's notoriously chaotic in there. I love the place. I love the guys that work there and own the place. But it is chaotic in there. It's tough to kind of sort through things. Piles of books all over the place and such. No luck finding any Usagi Yojimbo there. Unfortunately, there was 7 volumes up on Marketplace the other day by somebody that I know in one of the local Facebook comic groups. For $40, he had much later printings of the Fantagraphics books. The dimensions are the same as these books. I believe they're still in black and white. I missed it. Unfortunately, I saw it a little too late because that was a hell of a deal. $40 for all 7 books. I would have given that set to my daughter and then slowly built up my Fantagraphics set from my bookshelf. But it wasn't meant to be. When we were at Red River, I found a few things. A couple of issues of Badlands. I think now I'm only missing issue 5, a 6-issue miniseries from Dark Horse. We've talked about it plenty of times. I'm missing only issue number 5 now from this series. So I'm looking forward to kind of get my hands on that final one so I can read the whole miniseries at once. I was ecstatic to find a whole chunk of book 2 of Sanctuary. Every issue but issue number 1 of part 2 from Sanctuary. So this volume is 9 issues as well. Yes, 9 issues as well from Viz. I love this book. We've talked about it before, gangsters and politics. So really excited. I think they came to about, normally he doesn't give discounts or deals on the stuff upstairs. He was nice enough, kind enough to offer me a discount on some stuff. I think we got maybe $20 knocked off of the stuff that we bought upstairs, which was great of him. He didn't have to do it. These were, I think they were about $3 each priced in his back issue bin, which to me is very reasonable for this book, considering it's like double sized. Yes, they're faster reads than kind of North American style comics, but I'm so excited to have this. I really want to get, I really want to read it, but I really want to wait to get issue 1 from part 2 before I do that. So it may be time to put the call out on some of the Facebook comic groups, because this is one of my favorite series from digging back into the Viz archives. A Dan Clowes book that I didn't have, Death Ray. Joan Angelo, hello. Death Ray, I think this was $18 he had it priced at. Got a little bit of damage on the corner there, but the rest of it is in beautiful shape. It's just not a Clowes book that I felt the need to kind of rush out and get. It just, from what I've heard about it, it isn't something, and again, I'll probably be completely wrong when I actually read it and find out that it's phenomenal because it's Daniel Clowes, but it just wasn't something that I was drawn to. What I know, the little that I know about the story. That said, though, I am a huge Klaus fan. It was there looking me in the face. I couldn't say no this time. I'd love to complete my Klaus hardcover collection, which is up there on that top shelf there in that corner. So that was a really nice one. So Drawn and Quarterly is this one. And as usual, everything is beautiful about this book. He always does a fantastic job. And the last thing that I got, which will take us right into talking about what we've read this week. This is something that's also been on my radar for a long, long time. This is a hardcover collection of, I think the two trade paperbacks were called Bizarro World and Bizarro Comics, I think. So it was two different trade paperbacks. I don't know if they made appearances as single issues at some point. This collection is from 2001. It's got a litany of kind of alternative and oddball artists and writers involved with this. Guys like Dave Cooper is the first one that jumps to mind. Sam Henderson is in here. Dean Haspel, Gilbert Hernandez, Chip Kidd is in here. James Kochalka, Tony Millionaire. Paul Pope is in here as well. Jeff Smith is in here. Craig Thompson, etc., etc., etc. Bill Ray is in here. So a killer lineup of Kyle Baker is in here as well too. Kyle Baker is one of the stories that I've really dug so far. I've read a little bit of this, not a ton of it yet. Here's a look at kind of the breakdown of who's where. So far, it's exactly what I thought. It's a little bit Mad Magazine satire-ish. There's kind of a one story that sort of frames the whole thing. Mr. Mitsaplik, or however you say his name, his dimension is in danger of being destroyed by this very Kirby-looking entity called A. He's just called A. So he has to find a champion to fight him, and it's playing games with him. 7 different games. The best out of 7 will win. So he goes to another dimension, which they give a nice nod to Ditko, Doctor Strange, with the backgrounds in that one. And he decides he's going to pick Superman as his champion. So he gets to go to different doors, different dimensions, to see which Superman he wants to fight alongside him. So you get some gags there. And again, if you're really into the Superman lore, I'm sure there's a lot of nice little Easter egg jokes in there for you. And he finds Bizarro, of course, because the book is about Bizarro. And Bizarro doesn't really know what the hell he's doing. He gives him a quick rundown on what a superhero is. Bizarro decides that the best way to defeat a villain is to write comics. So we get the final page here in this first story of him madly writing page after page and drawing page after page of comics. So that's kind of like the conceit for the rest of the book. So all the rest of the comics that are in this are kind of Bizarro created. We get off the bat to hear some Gilbert Hernandez doing some superheroes, including like Spectre with a kick me sign on his back, Wonder Woman, The Flash, etc. And then we just jump right into the story. The first one has some art by Bob Fingerman, a little story about Kal-El's trip to Earth. And they send along a bunch of animals with him as well too, including Fluff E and Fide O and Spark L and etc. etc. And of course, he's found everything is as it was. A nice funny little moment at the end where we cut back to Krypton and go, what does he say? Well, what do you know? The planet didn't blow up after all. So he sent his child and animals away. So it's like I said, it's very Mad Magazine in its kind of humor. But the bonus is you get all these incredible artists. One of the ones that kind of blew me away the most so far is the Tony Millionaire Batman. Look at this fucking Batman here. The story itself is kind of silly. It involves the Penguin. But the art on this is really, really gorgeous. His Batman is a stunner, very kind of a throwback to the origins of the character, but still his own. I recall that Bizarro collection being in demand and pricey on the secondary market. Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's been on my list for so long there, John, that I just have never seen it, because it also feels like one of those books that people that do own copies aren't getting rid of them, because I just have never seen it out there. So this was kind of a no-brainer. It was $20, I think. Is that what it was? Does he have the price inside on this one? No, he doesn't, but I think it was $20. And no, he doesn't have the price inside. I'm pretty sure it was $20, and I jumped on it immediately without even a second thought, because I just don't know if I'll ever see this book again out there. So it's fun so far. I've read up to this story here. The Kyle Baker story is how far I've read. So I'm about 70, 80 pages in to it so far. But here's the Kyle Baker story, and it is, what's it called again? Letitia Lerner, Superman's Babysitter. DC and Elseworlds present, and it's fantastic. Mostly silent comic. Kyle Baker, as we all know, is pretty incredible. His ability to kind of really ride the line of his comics being animated, the movement that he gives the characters, the panel to panel, it's so good, man. Like he really gives some motion. Like this sequence down here, you can almost see it moving on the page. So these are more like storyboards for a cartoon as opposed to a comic, and just a really funny conceit. The folks want to get away, so what are you going to do if Superman is your child? You're going to find a babysitter and hope that she can keep up with the little bastard. So yeah, that was pretty damn funny. Everything is kind of chaotic by the end, but she's survived, and that's more than enough for them going, hey, great, are you available next weekend? They see someone that actually survived. We'll pay you double. Can you work next weekend, is what they say. Bill Ray coming up next on the next one here, this Aquaman story. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of great people. Let's go to Mr. Dave Cooper. If you've been around my channel long enough, you know that I'm a Dave Cooper stan. So let's take a look at his gorgeous art. Here we go. One piece, two piece, red piece, blue piece is what his strip is called here in this one. But there's some beautiful early 2000s Dave Cooper there. So very excited about this book. If you don't know it, so far it's really worth the hunt. I've heard good things about it from many people. It's kind of in line with when Marvel did their Strange Tales. I think there were 2 3-issue miniseries with kind of like Hernandez and Pete Bagg was in it, and a litany of other kind of alternative artists. Or if you're a fan of like the Treehouse of Terror stuff, where they get a lot of alternative, there's a couple issues where they get some alternative cartoonists to do some stories there. This is exactly in that same kind of wheelhouse of those books. So if you like any of those, chances are you're going to like the DC one. The only thing I would say, especially for a guy like me, I'm sure there's some gags in there that are completely over my head, because I'm not as familiar with some of the DC superhero lore. So I'm sure there's some stuff in there that's hilarious to people that know better. We talked about all of this stuff this afternoon. One of the things that we did talk about it. Never mind. Yeah, we talked about that last week. I had a stack of books sitting here at the side because there were things that I wanted to talk with Rasa about. And I won't go over too many of the things here because I don't have too much to say. It's books like Zatanna, Helen of Windhorn, which I'm loving. One more issue left of Helen of Windhorn, Kaya issue 20 and 21. What else do we got? Strips we talked about last week. Number 2 of Jason Aaron's Turtles book. This is one we'll briefly talk about. Rasa put it really well this afternoon. She finds that with this book, there just wasn't enough in the second issue for her to kind of grab onto. It feels like it's treading too much of the same water. With, we know the turtles' personalities, we understand that, like, what is the thing that's supposed to keep us coming back, other than it's going to be 4 issues where we get introduced to one of the turtles one at a time, where they currently are. They're going to reunite, and eventually something is going to happen. So she's feeling that it's a bit of a slog. I really liked the first issue. This issue left me a little cold. I didn't dislike it as much as Rasa, but I didn't think it was a strong issue. And one of the things we were talking about was the Raphael Albuquerque art. Again, just my opinion. Don't kill me. I don't think his art is that appealing. This is kind of that style of mainstream comic art that I just find really dull. And I see it in so many comics, and it's the main reason I don't pick up much mainstream stuff. This style just doesn't do it for me. The one time that it does work for me is with Serenity Firefly stuff. But I think, as I've said before, even in those videos, the reason I'm reading those books is because I love the universe. I wish the art was much better, because there's so many of those books where I find the art, to be honest, pretty fucking horrible. But I read them anyway because I love the universe so much. This is kind of not the opposite, but like, I enjoy early Ninja Turtles, but this art just leaves me so cold that then there's really nothing in it story-wise for me either. It's interesting enough. He's kind of a big celebrity, and we get a little taste of that life, you know, and it's just okay. But I find some of this just it's just not fun to look at. Like, those pages just don't do anything for me at all. Just my opinion. Don't hurt me, bro. That said, though, I really liked issue 1. I am still on board with what Jason Aaron's going to do. I find one of the things we also talked about this afternoon was this idea that they're really turning the Turtles into a franchise. Rasa herself has said in that IDW stuff, they introduced so many characters, and there's so many stories that they can do. And it feels like maybe it's a way to make sure they do get some readers in. I think a book like this is I think meant to appeal to maybe a guy like me who knows the early stuff. I don't know any of the IDW stuff, and honestly, I have a small interest in reading that stuff. I don't have a huge interest in kind of following those 150 issues, to be honest. So this is one of those books that, I mean, I'm picking it up. I'm sure there's other guys like me who haven't read IDW stuff that are picking this up on the strength of Jason Aaron as a writer. So I think it's smart on their point to try to have some stories that are going to appeal. The one that Ross is liking, and I can't remember, it's not called Nightcrawler, but it's something like that. I can't remember what the hell it's called. That's a character that appeared in the previous Turtles run. So she really gets a kick out of it because it's some characters that she knows really well, now taking them to the next evolution. So I think that's smart on their side as well, too. Having a book that appeals to the readers who have been there for the 150 issues, having a book that hopefully draws some people in who weren't there before, that sort of thing. So as a business from a business standpoint of putting out a comic, it ain't a bad idea. I just hope it gets better. I'm looking forward to the next ones. I don't know if Chris Burnham is next or if they're saving Burnham's art for the last one. The other one we talked about was Precious Metal. Again, not much to say about that. We talked about Frankenstein last week. So that's pretty much it, except for this one. This is one of the books that I got. Yeah, it was 150 issues was that final one. I did end up picking up that 150th issue just because it seemed like a thing. So it seemed like if I was going to get into Ninja Turtles, that IDW stuff, I should probably at least pick that one up. So that one I did kind of get sucked into. So this is from the Lone Star order that I did most recently. This is Channel X What Lurks on Channel X, Iconographics, which was an offshoot of Caliber Press. This was 1992. It's a one-man anthology. I thought it was an anthology of a multiple artists. It's all the same artist, Starlin Baxter, and I think it spans 19. Is there stuff from the 80s in here? I think it's like late 80s. Yeah, 1987 is a date that I'm seeing there. 1987 to the 1992. I had high hopes for this. I have a couple of iconographic stuff, and I really dig it. It seems like it was Caliber's attempt at like an alternative comics imprint. This one really just fell flat for me. I didn't find much appealing in here. There was a couple of interesting art styles. Nothing that jumped out at me as far as it being kind of mind-blowing, even for Caliber. There's something about this era of Caliber and independent comics that I a lot of times enjoy, especially when it's this style of black and white. He even does kind of like a Crazy Cat knockoff here, little strip for a few pages. But there was really nothing that kind of sunk. There was these tiny little moments where it showed a little something that maybe there was an opportunity to kind of make a bigger kind of commentary, but it just never panned out. There was this idea here, a little strip about America, and it looks like it was taking maybe newspaper clippings and putting them into a comic form. Again, that idea has a lot of appeal, but it just wasn't pulled off very well here. I didn't find it. It was like nonsensical. It was more like collage as opposed to I'm going to rip some stuff from the headlines and really twist it in an interesting way. There just wasn't that. And then in the middle, we get this kind of, again, a collage piece for the center spread, which is whatever. Yeah, I guess it's okay. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed in this one, if I'm honest. I don't know if I had high expectations. Maybe that's not the way to put it, but I did think it was going to be better. I had hopes that this was going to be something, because the cover is pretty wild. Again, the iconographics label on it seemed promising, but hey man, they can't all be winners. Considering the books that I've read over the years, digging into the bins, I've had a lot of luck with a lot of amazing titles. So I think my record is pretty damn good considering. So there's that, and then there's the back cover for it there. Chanel, another little collage. Good to see some interiors, though. Never saw that anthology collage, probably to change up the art style and provide variety of a one-man anthology. Yeah, or maybe just to fill it out. I don't know how prolific this artist was, but it also, part of me, it also felt like there was some stuff in there that was just to fill the space, that maybe that was like an attempt at like, hey, let's look at my career, but his career maybe didn't even fill an issue of a comic book, so they threw in some other stuff to kind of fit between the covers so they could make a full issue out of it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not very nice to say, because again, I don't know this artist at all. Maybe he was very prolific for all I know, but it's not a name that I'm familiar with. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment, but again, I've got a pretty damn good record of picking up some wild shit. And that said, it's still going in the drawer with the rest of the iconographic stuff. It's not going to break the bank. It hasn't broken the bank, and it's not going to fit in the collection, so it will stay with me. I think that's it for what I read while you're here, John. I have been getting into some gaming again and looking at some RPGs online. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Adam Vass. He's got a game that I downloaded called shit. It's not called shit, but Necronautilus is what it. World Champ Game Co. is his gaming company, and he's got this game called Necronautilus, this RPG. It's all RPG stuff. Why don't we look at the page together while you're here? a special presentation. World Champ Gameco share. So this is his website here. He's got multiple games. He's a big time game designer. He's done a ton of stuff. In Necronautilus, you play these sentient cloud entities that are servants of death, and you're trying to piece together your past and what it was like when you were alive. Here it is right here, Necronautilus. Beautiful cover. Like I said, I found a PDF version of it. He does still have versions of it. It's a tabletop role-playing game for a game master and one or more players. In it, players act as souls bound to clouds of noxious gas called death agents, exploring a universe outside of time consisting of planets full of creatures who ended up there when they died. While using their words of power to act on behalf of the blind god Death and maintain order in a post-death galaxy, they'll see their powers grow and splinter while exploring the corporeal life they left behind. So one of the mechanics in it that really drew me to it, first of all, that idea sounds fucking fantastic. But one of the mechanics that I thought was really interesting was, instead of having a book where you can gain spells and learn magic, at the beginning of the game, each player picks a number of words, just single words. It has to be, I think the only rule is they have to be 4 letters or more. And basically, those are what you can use. How you define those words based on what you're experiencing gives you your powers, and you sort of make up your own powers. If you're successful in using one of your words of power, you can then reorganize the letters of that word to create a new word. And for every letter that you don't use, you gain 1 health, I think is how it goes. So if I have a 7-letter word that I was successful on, I make a 5-letter word. 2 of the letters I haven't used, I can add those to my health, basically. I think that's a fantastic idea. I was watching some gameplay on YouTube, and just hearing people talk about their words and how they're defining them in a way that would help them with the situation they're facing, I thought was really, really cool. He also did a game that I have. I've never played it. Let's see if I can find it here quickly. It was one I've talked about on the channel quite a long time ago. It was a 1-sheet that folds out into a giant poster that is basically the game board. And in it, you're playing like this one here, Ether Operations RPG. So this one here, the rules are enclosed in this book. So every layer that you open is another part of the rule set. And then when you finally open it up all the way, it's the map of these worlds. So you play like a character made out of meat, bone, a couple of other things too. I can't remember. It probably won't say in here. Spirit, brain, bone, and meat. 4 quantum realms. Those are the quantum realms, and you're a manipulator. You play a manipulator from one of those realms. So again, and I think it might use the kind of word magic as part of its mechanics in this game as well too. So really original kind of guy here, doing some very cool stuff. So there's a look at some of that art there. And here's the final. That's when you open it up all the way. That's kind of what the different realms look like there, layered on top of each other. So I really want to get some RPGs to the table. I was talking to my son about it today. My son and daughter, we went out for breakfast yesterday, and while we were waiting for our table, they had an idea of creating a story where we kind of did it word at a time, 1 word at a time. So that was a nice transition to like, hey, I've got an idea. We can kind of take this, and why don't we do some RPG playing, and, you know, I'll run us through some games. So, not familiar with that designer, nor Necronautilus. Interesting. There's an immense variety of self-published TTRPG. Love that word choice mechanic. Very creative. Yeah. And there's so many of these TTRPGs. Like, there's so many. These different systems, the Troika stuff that I'm getting into. There's a lot of people that write other Troika games that fit within that, kind of like writing an adventure for a D&D campaign. There's now people independently writing adventures that'll fit into the Troika system or fit into whatever system is out there. I guess Morkborg is one of the big games now too. So they'll write kind of little mini games that fit inside that play system. So it's a whole amazing world. And one of the things that's so appealing about it for me is the art in a lot of these are really exceptional stuff that's kind of run of the mill and a little more boring, but there's a lot of creativity when it comes to art. Benjamin Mara actually did a book. He put together some of his old campaigns and has done a book of those. I don't remember what website I saw it on. It might have been on Rati Incantati website. Anyway, that's a total aside. Thanks very much for hanging out. I appreciate seeing you, John. It was great to see you, man. Thanks for stopping in. And for everybody else, yeah, I saw you mention Troika looks unique. Yeah, Morkborg too. I'll check out Mara's efforts too. Yeah, I wish I could remember the title of Mara's book, but I'm sure you can find it if you type in Benjamin Mara RPG. I think the idea was it was some of his campaigns that he played with his friends that then he put into a book, created monsters, did all these drawings, and then created a rule set. So now you can play within kind of the world and the adventures that him and his friends were having. So it makes sense. His style, I think, works with that really well. So makes sense to me. Anyway, hopefully we're back next Sunday, everybody. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and we'll talk to you.
My fight all my life long is not to enter into the system. It's not to accept the others, you know.